Coming up on the Angus Report, a foot and mouth disease outbreak would be devastating to the beef industry. That's why agriculture stakeholders are pushing for a fully funded vaccine bank in the 2018 Farm Bill.
It's springtime. Ranchers need to think about soil management practices to prepare their pasture for summer grazing.
And we celebrate Angus-sponsored steer wrestler Matt Reeves' big win at the American. This is the Angus Report. Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Clint Mefford.
Our top news this week. The U.S. has successfully kept the disease at bay since 1929, but foot and mouth disease still poses an enormous threat to U.S. animal agriculture. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, along with several other agricultural stakeholders, are pushing for a foot and mouth disease vaccine bank in the 2018 Farm Bill. The U.S. currently shares a bank with Canada and Mexico, but there isn't nearly enough vaccine in the event of an outbreak. We sat down with Dr. James Roth, director of the Center for Food Safety and Public Health, who talked about why the U.S. needs a fully funded foot and mouth bank.
A big problem with foot and mouth disease vaccine is that there are 24 different strains that you need to have in your bank because you don't know which strain of virus you're going to get. So to be prepared for any strain of FMD that's out in the world that might come in, we need 24 different vaccines in our bank. And currently the USDA recognizes there isn't enough vaccine and not enough types of vaccine, but they don't have funding that they need to build up the bank to the point where the industry and the regulatory officials are comfortable that we have enough. In order to have enough doses of vaccine for a rapidly spreading large outbreak, it would cost about $150 million a year for 5 years in order to have that vaccine bank in place. And the livestock industries are requesting that funding be put in the next Farm Bill, which will be coming up very soon, we hope. That's a lot of money, but the economic devastation if we don't have the vaccine would be huge. So it's a bit of an insurance policy.
Visit securebeef.org to learn more about the disease and what would happen in the event of an outbreak.
The Secure Beef Supply Plan is designed to better position beef producers in case of a foot and mouth disease outbreak. The voluntary program supports beef producers and other industry stakeholders who participate. Danelle Bickett-Weddle, Associate Director at the Center for Food Security and Public Health, explains foot and mouth symptoms and how producers can use the Secure Beef Supply Plan now to benefit their operation.
So foot and mouth disease, while we haven't had it since 1929, if it were to come into the United States, cattle are what they call the host that shows the most. So they will show the most clinical signs. So foot and mouth, right? They will see blisters or vesicles on their feet. Cows get pretty sore. They'll show some early signs of lameness. They'll get blisters in their mouth. They'll get sore tongues. They won't necessarily want to eat very much. And if you've ever had anything sore in your mouth, you salivate a lot. So do cows. So they're going to be drooling due to this. Looking for those types of lesions is kind of the telltale sign. And then if they find them, pick up the phone and call. We want the state veterinarian, the federal veterinarian to know there's something suspicious out there so we can get it under control as soon as possible. Foot and mouth disease is not a public health or a food safety concern. What the Secure Beef Supply Plan does is it allows the producers that have cattle that don't have any evidence of FMD infection have an opportunity to continue business, either moving their cattle to another premises or to a packing plant once they meet the permit requirements. There are some little things people could do now that would benefit them even with domestic diseases like BVD. So some of the biosecurity steps. One of the things we recommend is appoint somebody on farm to be your biosecurity manager, right? We have breeding managers. We have feedlot managers. Make a biosecurity manager. So another thing, we give an analogy of protect your castle. Think of your feedlot, think of your cow-calf operation as a castle. You decide who gets to cross the moat on the drawbridge. How would you control access if you had to? Biggest thing producers can do is keep good records. Because if an outbreak happens, the first thing they're going to want to know is, did you have contact with the known infected premises? And the faster producers can show, nope, I didn't, the faster they can move to the front of the line to still be able to move animals as long as they don't have evidence of FMD.
Producers are encouraged to request a national premise ID number from their state animal health official to speed up communication and response during an outbreak. Visit securebeef.org for more information about the Secure Beef Supply Plan. There you can find the 7-page Secure Beef Plan that outlines everything you need to know.
There are 5 soil health principles to keep in mind for optimal soil health. Armor the soil, minimize disturbance, increase plant diversity, properly integrate livestock, and optimize roots. That's according to Jim Johnson, a soils and crops consultant at the Noble Research Institute. The 5 principles are aimed at mimicking nature and emphasize that nature hates bare ground. He said, quote, "Nature will find a way to fill bare ground, and we can help by covering the ground with the forage we want, or let Mother Nature do it with weeds," unquote. To armor your soil, Johnson recommends you manage grazing. Nature doesn't like a monoculture, so grazers should increase plant diversity and incorporate native species. Johnson says a mixture of plant species helps increase soil aggregation. Healthy plant roots are an important part of the puzzle and can be optimized by controlling pests, managing grazing, and managing fertility. Look to USDA Natural Resources Conservation Services, such as EQIP and CSP programs, if you're looking to implement soil health practices. Visit your local USDA NRCS Service Center to learn more.
As grass begins to green this spring, producers will be itching to transition cattle from hay or forage to grazing. But continuing to feed hay or forage a bit longer could maintain pasture health. South Dakota State University professor Pat Johnson says producers should consider hay reserves, the cost of purchasing additional feed, and the impact of early grazing on pasture grasses before they decide to turn beef cattle out on spring pastures. Johnson says if feed reserves are available, feeding livestock a little later into spring provides pasture grasses with time to shift from dependency on reserves to utilizing photosynthesis for energy. If you graze too early, production for the balance of the growing season might be reduced. To maximize pasture health, research suggests waiting until grass plants have reached the 3-leaf stage before grazing. In addition, Johnson says, quote, "The management goal is to distribute defoliation pressure on desirable species to different times of the season in different years. If a pasture is grazed at the same time every year, the vigor of plant species which are the most vulnerable at that season will be reduced, and they may eventually be eliminated from that pasture," unquote.
Beef Quality Assurance has been and continues to be dedicated to informing U.S. beef producers and consumers about animal welfare and creating a sustainable beef demand for decades. A new BQA initiative, Transportation Quality Assurance, addresses many industry concerns about the health and welfare of cattle. Deb Van Overbeck, Assistant Dean and Professor of Meat Science at Oklahoma State University, explains how the new program can benefit the entire beef production chain.
BQA transportation certification just released in December, and so we're just getting a push on that from a BQA advisory board standpoint, pushing that educational effort out. It's online not only for professional truckers, but for farmers and ranchers that are hauling cattle. And so giving them the opportunity to make sure they understand what impacts transportation has on quality.
The BQA transportation program was designed to teach proper handling and transportation of cattle and has the potential to prevent bruising. A 2016 National Beef Quality Audit revealed that bruising was generally less severe than previous audits, but more carcasses had bruises. Still, the beef industry loses out on millions of dollars per year due to bruising.
We have a large percentage of carcasses that have a bruise, so in that 65 to 70% range, depending on if you're looking at fed steers and heifers or calves and bulls. And although most of those are minor bruises, it gets us back to thinking about animal handling, animal management, and what can we do to help lower that percentage. Did they bump on the truck? Were they handled with a hot shot? Various things like that, going back to loading at the feedlot and then through transportation and unloading at the plant. I think based on comments from packers, we're going to see some packers perhaps implement a requirement that truckers are BQA transportation certified to unload cattle at the plant.
Visit bqa.org to learn more about the BQA and the transportation program.
The Creighton University Rural Main Street Index delivered mixed news for rural Americans last month. For the first time in almost 3 years, the index sprang higher and advanced above growth neutral. But Creighton University economists Ernie Goss and Jack A. McAllister warned that weak agricultural commodity prices could foreshadow a bad year. Created in 2005, the index surveys bank CEOs in rural areas dependent on agriculture within a 10-state region. Survey results showed growth in farm equipment sales, but the growth didn't bring the index above growth neutral. Farmer borrowing sank in February, and fewer than 1 in 4 bankers reported economic growth in their area. The confidence index reflects expectations for the economy in 6 months and was a bright spot for rural America. The index rose from 46.7 in January to 52.4 in February, but Goss noted volatile NAFTA renegotiations and a weak 2018 USDA farm income projection dampen economic optimism.
When we return, we visit with the Senior Vice President of Tyson Fresh Meats, who talks about what he wants from beef producers.
Then we celebrate a huge win for Angus-sponsored steer wrestler Matt Reeves. Visit Angus.org to continue watching this episode of the Angus Report.